You could feel the anger tonight at a Board of Trustees meeting in Thornton Township. The board and citizens looking for accountability to their finances, while the township supervisor...
Good evening. An illegal appointment. That's what the trustees I talked to are calling this. They say the news took them by surprise, and now they're talking to legal counsel to figure out their next.
Tiffany Henyard has always known how to steal the spotlight, but this time it seems she's in way over her head. Rumors are swirling that the self-proclaimed super mayor is secretly cutting a deal with the FBI to avoid a one-way ticket to prison. Could this be her last-ditch effort to escape the fate that's quickly closing in on her? Word on the street is that Henyard has realized her reign is crumbling and is now trying to take everyone down with her. But here's the twist. It's not just Henyard who's facing trouble.
And Bradley continues his exclusive reporting from Dalton.
So, how did we get here? It's been a wild ride, with Tiffany Henyard at the helm of Dalton, Illinois, a small village that somehow became the epicenter of a storm filled with corruption, mismanagement, and betrayal. Just a few months ago, Henyard was on top, seemingly untouchable, holding dual roles as both the mayor of Dalton and the supervisor of Thornton Township. She crafted an image of herself as the super mayor, determined to clean up the village. But as it turns out, she may have been cleaning up in more ways than one.
For a year now, we've been reporting on questionable spending by a South suburban politician named Tiffany Henyard, but we only knew half the story.
Now, sources close to the situation are whispering that Henyard has been quietly negotiating with the feds, hoping to strike a deal that will keep her out of court. The wildest part? She might be ready to betray her closest allies, the very people who helped her build her empire, the ones who stood by her and supported her every move. It seems Henyard's loyalty has its limits, and now that the walls are closing in, she's willing to throw anyone under the bus if it means saving herself.
But it saddens my heart that you are up here at this special meeting and not downstairs where we have big bingo.
The talk of the town is that Henyard's legal team, two high-powered criminal defense attorneys with a track record of representing big names, are working around the clock to secure her the best deal possible. But what does that mean for her inner circle? The same people who helped her execute what many are calling one of the boldest power grabs in local politics are now looking over their shoulders, wondering if they're next in line to be thrown under the bus.
Well, Mr. Lacey is absolutely not guilty of all 9 counts. I believe he's cooperating. And if you cooperate, you have to admit your guilt first.
Henyard's rise to power wasn't a solo act. She had a whole cast of characters working behind the scenes. These individuals played key roles in what has now spiraled into a full-blown political scandal. Take Keith Freeman, for example. Freeman was once Henyard's closest ally, her right-hand man in Dalton, and a trusted advisor in Thornton Township. Together, they ran the village with an iron grip. A former village administrator and the registered agent of Henyard's controversial charity, Freeman was crucial in helping her maintain control over Dalton's finances. Until he wasn't.
One way that the government always does it is to go and investigate people around her, and that's what they're doing here.
Freeman's fall from grace came fast. He was hit with federal charges for bankruptcy fraud, and just like that, his partnership with Henyard soured. Reports say Henyard tried to cut ties, even attempting to fire him at a village board meeting, but the board wasn't having it. Freeman's downfall is just one example of how quickly Henyard is willing to sever ties when things get messy. Now, rumors are swirling that Freeman might be cooperating with investigators. If that's true, it could spell disaster for Henyard and her entire operation.
You know, wrong is wrong, and there's a time to hold people responsible and accountable for that.
Then there's L. Lacey, the former deputy police chief of Dalton, another key player in Henyard's inner circle. Lacey was no stranger to controversy, having been charged with bankruptcy fraud, just like Freeman. Yet that didn't stop Henyard from reappointing him to lead the police department, despite protests from the village trustees. Lacey's appointment was yet another sign of Henyard's defiance and her determination to maintain control, no matter the cost. But just like Freeman, Lacey's loyalty to Henyard lasted only until the feds came knocking.
Coming in, unfortunately, we knew it was going to be a little messy. But it's just something we felt important that had to be done, that should be done. So, but like I said, yeah.
Lacey is now caught in the crosshairs of the federal investigation, with some believing he could be another pawn in Henyard's game of survival. His name has been linked to questionable overtime payouts, with reports showing that he earned over $200,000 in overtime despite not being eligible for it. The timing of these payouts has raised suspicions, with many wondering if they were part of a larger scheme orchestrated by Henyard. Now, facing serious legal trouble, Lacey might be looking to strike a deal of his own. Meanwhile, the residents of the township are left to foot the bill for Henyard's actions. And the drama doesn't stop there. Henyard's former assistant turned trustee, Carmen Carlisle, was once considered a loyal supporter of the supermayor. But as the scandal unfolded, Carlisle turned on Henyard, accusing her of unethical behavior and predatory practices. Carlisle claims Henyard used her position to manipulate employees and vendors, funneling taxpayer money into personal projects and luxury expenses. For the past 2 years, Henyard has manipulated employees, vendors, and residents to increase her influence, all while projecting a false image of success, Carlisle said in a statement. It's a damning accusation, one that puts Carlisle at odds with the woman who once trusted her with her inner circle. Carlisle's whistleblower claims didn't stop at vague accusations. She detailed how Henyard's administration spent exorbitant amounts of money on first-class flights, 5-star hotels, and high-end dining, all at the taxpayers' expense. One trip to Austin, Texas reportedly cost the village over $20,000, with Henyard and her entourage racking up bills at luxury hotels and steakhouse dinners. And let's not forget the $33,000 Henyard spent in a single day on Amazon purchases. These kinds of expenses weren't just frowned upon, they'd become central to the ongoing federal investigation into Henyard's misuse of funds.
The township residents are paying for her fund.
Henyard's spending habits have come under intense scrutiny for months, with village trustees repeatedly calling for transparency. The village's general fund balance plummeted from a surplus of over $5 million in 2022 to a deficit of nearly $4 million by 2024, a staggering financial collapse many believe is directly tied to Henyard's reckless spending. Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who was hired to investigate Henyard's financial dealings, found that police costs had skyrocketed during Henyard's time in office. Some officers were earning more in overtime than their base salaries, with one officer raking in over $100,000 in overtime pay in a single fiscal year, more than double his regular salary.
Who would make a one-day purchase of over $40,000 to Amazon? And the main thing is, what is?
But here's where it gets really interesting. As the feds dig deeper into Henyard's finances, some are starting to wonder if this whole scandal will take down more than just the mayor. With so many of her allies already facing legal trouble, it's becoming clear that this isn't just about one person. This is about a network of individuals who've worked together to enrich themselves at the village's expense. Now reports suggest that Henyard is ready to point the finger at each and every one of them if it means she can avoid serving time.
We needed those officers to be on the street fighting crime. And instead, we have several officers that are riding around protecting.
In recent weeks, the tension between Henyard and the village board has reached a boiling point. During a board meeting, trustees voted to block Henyard from using credit cards for unapproved purchases and imposed restrictions on how much money could be spent on special events. These actions are seen as direct attempts to limit Henyard's influence and stop her from continuing her lavish spending spree. But Henyard isn't backing down. She has vetoed multiple board decisions and continues to push forward with her own agenda, even as the investigation into her grows more intense.
What I think is interesting about this case, this story, is you can be highly legal and unethical at the same time.
What about those who once supported her but are now speaking out against her? Thornton Township Trust Chris Gonzalez, who was once loyal to Henyard, has been outspoken about his disapproval of her spending. He's called her out for approving events that weren't even in the township's budget, like the infamous Taste of Thornton Township event. Henyard spent $85,000 on a mini concert featuring R&B singer Cake Wed and rapper Jay Holiday, only for the event to flop with barely any attendance. Despite the lack of turnout, Henyard still paid the performers top dollar for their brief 30-minute sets. Gonzalez's criticism is just one more sign that the cracks in Henyard's support system are growing wider.
I am out to address some things as the supervisor. There will be no comments, there will be anything, it will be me addressing you guys to tell you what's going on.
As rumors swirl about Henyard's potential deal with the FBI, the question on everyone's mind is who will go down with her. If she decides to betray her allies, it could mark the end of their careers and possibly their freedom. Will Freeman, Lacey, and Carlisle be dragged down with her, or will they strike their own deals to avoid prison time? The clock is ticking, and as more details surface about Henyard's secret negotiations, it's clear this story is far from over. What we do know is that the scandal has already rocked Dalton to its core, and it's only a matter of time before the next bombshell drops. One thing's for sure, Henyard's days of ruling the village with an iron fist are numbered. The only question now is who will go down with her. But let's take a step back and examine how Tiffany Henyard ended up in this mess. Her downfall didn't happen overnight, though it certainly feels like it's spiraling out of control now. Henyard's time in office has been marked by one scandal after another, but nothing compares to the level of corruption and chaos she's unleashed on the village of Dalton. Her super mayor image was built on promises to clean up the town, yet it didn't take long for people to realize that Henyard wasn't cleaning up the village. She was cleaning out its bank accounts. Residents who once believed in her vision of a better Dalton are now watching their town crumble, both financially and morally. It's no wonder Henyard has earned the nickname Dalton Dictator, and the evidence is everywhere. Let's start with the basics: misuse of funds. This is where Henyard's troubles began to snowball. She wasn't just careless with Dalton's finances, she was reckless. From the moment she took office, she treated the village's budget like her personal credit card, shelling out thousands of dollars on lavish trips, high-end restaurants, and luxury hotels.
By the Lansing Journal, Trustee Chris Gonzalez said,
or the administration can adhere to some financial limits. We're not looking to necessarily...
Remember that trip to Austin, Texas? It wasn't just a quick getaway. Henyard and her entourage spent more than $20,000 on a 5-day stay, with over $11,000 of that spent at the upscale Fairmont Austin Hotel. And that's just one example. Similar indulgences were reported on other taxpayer-funded trips to New York, Atlanta, and Portland. The village trustees tried to rein in the spending spree, but Henyard wasn't having it. She vetoed their attempts to investigate her expenses, all while racking up over $67,000 in travel costs within just a 5-month span.
That's right, Dawn and Terrence. Tonight's meeting had a much different tone than what we've experienced previously at Dalton City Council meetings. Now, the room was full of Henyard supporters, and they wanted me to be sure to tell you that they applauded for her several times as she talked about the township being in a great place financially. Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard.
And it wasn't just the travel. Henyard also spent a jaw-dropping $33,000 on Amazon in a single day. Let that sink in for a moment. $33,000 on Amazon. To make matters worse, there are no clear records explaining what that money was spent on. It's no surprise that the village's finances took a nosedive under her leadership. By the time former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was brought in to conduct an independent investigation, Dalton was already in serious financial trouble. Lightfoot's preliminary report revealed that the village's general fund had plummeted from a healthy $5 million surplus to a staggering $3.05 million deficit.
This administration is shameful. Y'all are a disgrace. We're watching the fall of this administration.
What's even more alarming is how Henyard's administration handled overtime pay for the police department. Under her watch, 2 officers were making more in overtime than their base salaries, with one officer receiving over $100,000 in overtime pay alone. Keep in mind, this is a village with a population of just over 200 people. What could possibly justify this kind of spending? But the financial mismanagement is just part of the story. Henyard's behavior throughout her time in office has been nothing short of outrageous. From the very beginning, it was clear she wasn't playing by the rules. She was making her own.
Staffers also distributed a breakdown of the township's finances from 2017 to current, where Henyard's team says years ago they were in a deficit of more than $2 million. And now, today, under her administration, her team says there's a surplus of more than $6 million.
Henyard has been accused of using her power to intimidate and retaliate against her opponents, silencing critics and consolidating control over Dalton and Thornton Township. One of the most notorious examples of her bullying tactics was when she ordered her personal police detail to follow residents who dared to speak out against her. This personal security force, funded by the very taxpayers she was draining, became an extension of her power. Former Dalton Police Chief Robert Collins even spoke out about how Henyard's constant demands for a large security detail crippled the department's ability to combat crime.
They'll turn up more and more information. They'll turn up more leads. They may turn up more witnesses. They may find a cooperator. They may find an informant, all which will benefit the investigation tremendously.
But based on what we know now, if you're Tiffany Henyard, how are you feeling?
I would be nervous.
Instead of having officers on the streets, they were following Henyard around, acting as her personal bodyguards. "We needed those officers to be on the street fighting crime," Collins said, but instead, they were riding around protecting the mayor. Henyard's heavy-handed approach didn't stop there. She also found ways to retaliate against her political enemies. Take the case of Valaria Stubbs, a former trustee and vocal critic of Henyard. Stubbs' home was shot at in the middle of the night, and although no one was harmed, Stubbs has repeatedly suggested that the attack was an act of intimidation, potentially orchestrated by Henyard.
I do not handle anything as relates to with credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting about, I do not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir.
You didn't go to Las Vegas? What is that?
No comment.
While there's no concrete evidence linking Henyard to the shooting, the incident certainly adds to the growing list of allegations against the mayor. Henyard's behavior has become so brazen that she even filmed herself shoveling snow from Stubbs' driveway during a snowstorm, mocking Stubbs by calling her a hater, in a bizarre attempt to taunt her. It was a move that shocked many, but for those familiar with Henyard's antics, it was just another day in Dalton. The misuse of taxpayer dollars, the manipulation of village resources, the abuse of power, it all points to a woman who believed she was untouchable. And for a time, it seemed like she was. But now, with the FBI closing in, Henyard's empire is crumbling.
Gardner says he's been harassed and his business raided and shut down by Dalton police. He believes because he refused to make a donation to a civic event sponsored by Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard.
And I talked to a couple of agents and I explained them what was going on. I gave them all my paperwork.
The federal subpoenas served to Dalton and Thornton Township are a clear sign that the feds aren't just poking around, they're closing in. These subpoenas are reportedly seeking records on everything from the village's finances to Henyard's political fund, and even her cancer charity, which has come under its own share of scrutiny for questionable dealings. Yes, the Tiffany Henyard Cares Foundation, supposedly a charitable effort aimed at helping cancer patients, has become embroiled in controversy, much like everything else tied to Henyard. Not only has the foundation failed to file the required financial disclosures with the state, but it also received a $10,000 donation from Thornton Township on the very day it was chartered.
Been reporting for nearly 2 years on allegations of corruption surrounding Henyard in her capacity as Dalton mayor and Thornton Township supervisor. And now we've learned from multiple sources that federal agents are in fact interviewing witnesses as part of a possible investigation that may or may not result in charges.
And that's not all. Documents reveal that much of the foundation's expenses were charged to the village's credit card, with over $1,000 spent on hotels, meals, photographers, and even DJs. These revelations have raised serious questions about whether the foundation was ever truly focused on charity, or if it was just another way for Henyard to funnel money into her personal projects. As her legal troubles continue to mount, it's becoming increasingly clear that her time is running out.
Offered to our seniors, and they told us, your card doesn't work. And I stand in the fight because I want the boys and girls of the next generation to see what it looks like to come out of controversy and to come out of all the hatred unscathed. At the end of the day, God gives the test to his strongest soul.
The rumors of her deal with the FBI seem more plausible with each passing day, especially given how much Henyard stands to lose if convicted of the charges she's facing. She could be looking at serious prison time, which is why many believe she's ready to cut her losses and turn on her allies. But will her deal be enough to save her? And more importantly, what will it mean for the rest of her inner circle? It's hard to imagine that Henyard will walk away from this without taking a few people down with her.
All I can tell you is that I'm not the one on anything. That's all I can tell you right now. So I'm just trying to answer to the.
So you're saying there's a foundation that's not registered, but it has nothing to do with you?
Correct. That's true.
Okay.
That's
so you're not aware of any of the work that they've done, money that they've raised, anything along those lines?
Correct.
There's already speculation that Keith Freeman, her former right-hand man, has been cooperating with the feds for months. If that's true, Henyard may not have as much leverage as she thinks. Freeman's involvement in the village's financial mismanagement is well documented, but he's not the only one in Henyard's circle facing trouble. Lacey, the former deputy police chief, is another key figure who could soon find himself in the hot seat. Lacey's role in the overtime pay scandal has already raised concerns, and now that he's facing federal charges for bankruptcy fraud, it's only a matter of time before the feds start questioning him about his relationship with Henyard.
Very appreciative to receive the information today. We have the best mayor ever. I've been here since 1993, and she's the best we ever had.
You know, you're doing a lot of programs, good programs for the senior citizens, and you're doing a lot of programs for people who are on a fixed budget. But what about the people, the blue collar people who are still carrying this?
If Freeman decides to flip and testify against Henyard, it could be the final nail in her coffin. Then there's Carmen Carlisle, the former ally turned whistleblower. Carlisle's decision to speak out against Henyard has already sent shockwaves through the local political scene. But if she has more damning information on the mayor, she could become a key asset to the federal investigation.
Y'all thought that I was young, dumb, didn't know nothing, was gonna let y'all come and manipulate me. I didn't do any of that. So because I didn't do any of that, you guys started this whole smear campaign.
Carlisle's claims of unethical behavior and manipulation within the Henyard administration are damning, and her insider knowledge of how things operated behind the scenes could provide the feds with the crucial evidence needed to bring Henyard down. As the investigation unfolds, it's clear that this isn't just about Tiffany Henyard anymore. It's about a web of corruption that has engulfed an entire village, leaving its residents bankrupt and disillusioned. The people of Dalton trusted Henyard to lead them, but instead, she led them into financial ruin.
You don't know if you were in Las Vegas?
Of course I do.
Were you?
It's not paid by them.
Did you fly first class to Las Vegas?
Any other questions?
As the FBI closes in, the question remains, how many more secrets will be exposed before this saga comes to an end? While rumors of Henyard's secret deal continue to circulate, one thing is certain. This is far from the last we've heard of Dalton's super mayor. Whether she cuts a deal or fights until the end, Tiffany Henyard's reign is coming to a close, and she won't walk away unscathed. The only question now is who will be the next to fall. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this unfolding story.